We both saw this.
Hi, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Well, today's September 11th, 2024, and I'm here to do my after therapy talk. Oh, it's hot up here, but it's cool today, but it's hot up here. Anyway, I want to get this done, and while everything is sort of fresh in my head, today was a very, very empowering session. It was very enlightening, and it almost feels like what happened today was sort of all of the pieces of everything came together, or at the very minimum it's coming together. I really felt like I'm seeing a great big picture, like seeing things, like I see things clearly, and I've been seeing things clearly when it comes to my marriage. But I really feel like all the pieces are just starting to tie in, and I'm understanding so much greater. So it was very enlightening, and with that comes like it's very empowering to help you make decisions, help you also not just make the decisions, but when to make the decisions. Like it's helping, you know what I mean? But before we get to that, I want to put a link right here to my last after therapy talk where I talked about grief, where my therapist had said to me that when it comes to my marriage of 24 years, that I've been separated since March, that I'm experiencing grief based off the things that I've told her, not just in that session last Wednesday, which was the 4th of September, but what I had already been expressing. And this session, she really sort of tied it all in for me. But let me go ahead and talk about last session a little bit, and then we'll move forward into what happened in the week that led up to this Wednesday's therapy session. So, like I said, in that last week's session, it was about, she posed the question, or she posed. Oh, by the way, I took a big chunk of my nail off yesterday evening. It was so painful. And I don't want to put anything on top of it because it hurts so bad. Because I didn't just take the nail off, but I also cut the nail, like the bed of my finger. It's so painful. So anyways, let me go ahead and talk about last week's session, okay? Grief. The other question that was, or the other thing she asked me last week was, am I better off today than I've been? And the answer was yes. I didn't even have to think about it. It was yes. And so it really left me thinking about a lot, especially grieving. Am I grieving the loss of my marriage of 24 years? Am I? Is this what's happening? Because if I'm grieving, there has to be a loss. And do I know that? Is it subconsciously, do I know that? I trust my therapist. I trust that what she's telling me is that it is grieving, and I'm going through stages of it, you know. And what happened, you know, really when I went to her last Wednesday on the 4th was I told her, I said, I went through anger and depression, and I was feeling those angry and depression, but also like I realized, I looked in the mirror, like I think it was like, just to give you some time frame, like September 1st or August 31st, where I looked in the mirror and I said, you know, wow, you know, there is no change. We're not moving forward in the same direction. We're just not. And I realized it. I saw it, and it hit me. And there was like a sense of shock of that, a sense of like, oh my gosh, you know, I've known this for 24 years, you know, whatever it is, I've been with him for 24 years, married, 26 altogether. But that's kind of what led into last week's session, was all those emotions and feelings. And that's when she said, you know, you've displayed your grieving. And so what ended up happening? I got to tell you a little bit of what happened in the week that led into today. So my grandbaby was due September 7th, my grandson. And the whole week I sort of was on high alert. So my son had asked me if I could watch my granddaughter when she finally went into labor, that if I would take my granddaughter. And, I said yes, but the problem is I live an hour away. And so I just, I said, yeah, but babies come in the drop of a hat. And, so I was sort of on this high alert last week. Anyway, come Saturday was the 7th. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I get a call that it is time. And so I got up and I was like, okay, at first I had to collect myself and I'm like all in this, very excited emotions and stuff. And I thought, oh my God, I got an hour drive. Let me get going. So I packed a couple of things like my blood pressure cuff and things like that. And I was pretty much ready by 30 minutes. It took me to brush my teeth, do my hair, grab my things. But also what happened was I ended up waking up my husband. So I went to his room, I woke him up and I said, hey, the baby's coming. The only thing I can tell you guys is that in that moment, there was what transpired the moment, even though I'm not going to be able to talk about it exactly, detail, I just can tell you that everything that I had been feeling in terms of that, what I had seen the previous week around the 1st of September, that I told you, I said, I didn't see we were moving in the same direction. And I knew that. And so there was that shock moment, And so what happened Saturday when I told him that the baby was due, and what transpired was I saw it. I saw it. I saw that for lack of a better way, he is not moving forward. We're not in the same page. We're not trying to create something here, and we're just not. And I saw it. And so because of what transpired, I got triggered, it triggered so much emotion in that moment. Some anger, some sadness, some shock. Again, that shock feeling of you're getting hit, you're seeing it. And also the needing to get on the road, the urgency, the excitement. So I was being pulled emotionally, just all kinds of crazy. I ended up getting on the road. I was not even out of the residential area here in my area when my son calls again. And at this time he says, you know what, Mom, don't even come to the house. Go straight to the hospital. Mind you, by this point, I'm looking at almost 2:45 at this point in the morning. And I was like, okay. He says, do you know the hospital? And I'm thinking the hospital that they used to work at, which is closer to me. And for them, it's halfway point, but coming towards me, right? So it's this way. He says, no, Mom, it's another hospital. I'm going to text you the address, but click it and it's going to take you to the GPS. I said, all right. So he sends me the address. I click it. My GPS comes up on my car and it tells me how to go. I didn't even look at the address. I just clicked it. As I'm driving, it's taking me a different way. I look down and it was an hour and 25 minutes. So it takes me an hour to get to my son. Okay. It takes me an hour to get to my son. This hospital is about 25 minutes from his house, going further away from me in a totally different direction. And I realized that and I thought, oh my gosh. So I'm feeling all kinds of ways at this point. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, please let everything be okay with her. Let the baby get here safe. Let me get there safe. And then I started praying about what happened. And I pretty much just left it all in God's hands at that point. I mean, I prayed from deep from my soul because I saw and I knew then, like I knew then that we're not moving in the same direction. That maybe I dare say we don't want the same things. I don't know. I'm just, I don't know. All I know is that we both know the issues. We both are very aware of the issues. We can do our part, both of us, and I am. And that's all I can do is my part. Like my therapist said several sessions ago, two people. And in this union, you're only in control of one part of it. And I just knew. And so I prayed. I think I prayed and talked to God for most of the journey. I really, really did. All the emotions and things that I felt going out of the house really started to subside. And I was just focused on getting to, there was a calmness, a peaceness that came over me. And I ended up getting there. I got there like about, I don't know, I don't even remember. I think maybe 5-ish in the morning or so. It was definitely out there. And then there was a part where I had to drive backside, like back on the canyon side. It was crazy. Like towards where they live, there's a lot of that hillside canyons and things like that. And anyway, I made it there. My grandbaby was still sleeping. My son's girlfriend was already in the room, so thankfully she was already hooked up. She was already there. Everything's fine. My son was just in the car waiting for me to get there. We put my granddaughter in my car, and so I ended up heading to his house, okay? But unfortunately, my granddaughter ended up waking up like 3 blocks from the house, and it was like at this point like 5:30 in the morning, and I'm thinking, oh my God, she's not gonna go back to bed. And no, she did not go back to bed. I was so tired. But anyway, she ended up finally going to sleep at 10 in the morning, and I thought, oh my goodness. So, but she needed to sleep. She was so tired. And anyway, everything worked out. My grandbaby was born at 8:10 in the morning that morning. So everything, praise God, turned out okay. You know, everything more than okay, perfect. You know. So I ended up staying at my son's house, and then there was a point where I questioned whether I wanted to come back to the house with my granddaughter, because I had my granddaughter like 3 nights. She ended up having to stay an extra day in the hospital because the baby presented a little bit of an issue, but he's fine. He's fine. So they just kind of wanted to keep her over one night. So I had my granddaughter pretty much 3 nights. And I thought about it on Saturday if I wanted to even come to the house, but I had no clothes. I had nothing to change. So I did. I made it home. And you know, you guys, I will say that it was very different for me. Prayer has really, that prayer for me was so deep and so, just so from the soul. It really was one of those prayers where you just know, you knew, I knew. And I just had to trust. Everything was good. It was calm. And when I dropped her off Monday night, I got to see my grandson, got to hold, I have pictures and things. So amazing, so nice. And he's so healthy and beautiful. And I was in the moment, and I felt the moment, which is things that I really am starting to experience, being in the moment. I don't feel so heavy. I don't feel so overloaded in emotions and thoughts. So let's talk about the therapy session real quick. It was explained to me everything that's going on. I understand the grieving. And she was saying to me, I had already been seeing you in the grieving process. You weren't aware of it, but you were talking a lot about these steps. And when you said to me, you're not going back, you've been saying that, you're not going back to what you've had. You know, you didn't know if your husband was going to be on board and you know, do his half. You didn't know that. You just knew you weren't going back. And you were already starting to see that there was no change. And I was already hearing you in that stage, in that process. I heard you doing a lot of bargaining. She explained bargaining to me, and I was doing a lot of bargaining, and I get what bargaining is. And it's basically in the grieving process. Of course, it depends on the situation, if the person's here or not here. Like if the person's no longer with us and you're grieving that type of loss, it's a lot of times you hear like, if I would have did this, they would be here. Maybe I could have been with that person more. You do a lot of that kind of bargaining. But she heard a lot of the bargaining with me. She said, I would hear you say things like, maybe I can accept him like that. Maybe this is my fault. Maybe if I weren't this way or if I weren't that way. She says, I did hear that. So I have seen this. I started seeing this in you, Laura. But the loss that you're experiencing, it doesn't have to necessarily be right now the loss of an actual marriage. She says it can actually be the loss of the dreams. It could even be the loss of there's no longer going to be any more discussions. You're done with those. You're out of that. You're not going to entertain the same type of discussions that really have led to not bringing you guys together. And those types of things are gone for you. Those are losses. It's what you've done for 24 years to one degree or another. But also, importantly, the dreams. Now, we did talk about hope, and I guess that's the last thing that you want to give up on, and I think that's normal. But it doesn't have to necessarily mean that, okay, it's over. Everything comes. And when it comes to a marriage in your situation, you're not there yet, but you're definitely starting to get into the acceptance stage of it, and you're tipping your toes into acceptance. And that's what happened this weekend. Your husband acted and said exactly who he's always been. There's nothing new to you. That is who you know. And because it is who he is and it is who you know, and you're in a different, you're wanting that change in both of you, it triggered you because you knew what that meant. And I said, yeah. So that was going to happen. That was going to happen. His reaction, his thing, that was going to happen. But you're different. You're moving on. And so you were triggered. You got angry. That's normal. That's normal. But I love the way you leaned on your faith. That was fantastic. And then you also started leaning into what you're learning about yourself. So that's what it was. And it was very enlightening, and I get it. I really, really get it. Where am I at today in terms of, yeah, I accept that I am grieving. I also accept that I, am starting to go into acceptance. However, the only thing I want to say when it comes to that, and this is how I'll end it, is how she ended the therapy session. She goes, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, Laura. You are making such strides because you've been ready, Laura. You've been ready. You've already been grieving, if not for years, to be honest. And the thing of it is that she said, I want you to know, when you're in acceptance, I don't want you to think that because you're there, that everything is good, everything's, you accepted it, you can move on now, you could, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You're still going to dip yourself back into some sadness. You're going to maybe even go into anger and depression. I just want you to know that that's normal. I don't want you to think there's something wrong with you, because you will dip back. And it goes back to that thing where how she showed me at the very beginning of therapy, like the very first therapy sessions back in April, where she talked about We're in the present, you have your past and your future, and it's trying to get to your future. But you're in the present doing the work, but you tend to go back into the past quite a bit at first. And so it kind of goes back into that. And so she says, you're going to go back into the past. You're going to dip into the past. You're dipping in a lot less, and you're dipping in with more awareness. And I'm recognizing when I'm there. And so she wanted me to know that I'll find myself in different stages of grieving. I will be there until I'm finally accepted it, you know. That's it, you guys. I feel good. I don't have any homework, and I couldn't do my last week homework. I told her because of the baby. But it's okay, she said, it's okay. The other thing, too, I have it right here, is that we talked about what's important about is how we react, emotional versus logical. And when it comes to me and it comes to my marriage, she says, you're actually now going more into the logical and you're less emotional. And that's where when you react on logic, you become more acceptance. When you act on emotion, it's harder. And so I wrote it down because that helps me, you know, understand, because she says emotional tends to be more childlike, where logical, you're more responsible. It's more of a responsible reaction. So, and I told her it's weird because, you know, lately after that prayer and after that final seeing what I saw on Saturday morning from him and seeing it, I said to her, I said, it's almost like I think things logical and I have ideas. And we didn't get to talk about a couple of ideas that I want to do in my life. And we'll talk about them next week, I told her. But it's like I'm running on more logic than emotion. And I haven't had that experience in a long time, to be honest. I've been on an emotional push, you know, even getting up in the morning. If I feel bad or if I feel, a lot of it was based off how I felt when I woke up, mentally, emotionally. And because it's been so broken and dysfunctional in terms of my marriage, I always woke up very, very emotionally charged, you know, and that dictated my day. Where now I wake up, even if it's these, especially within these past days that I've had my granddaughter, prayer, and this past pretty much couple 4 or 5 days, I just feel like I wake up and I logically think about what I need to get done in my day. And there's such an excitement in it. But yeah, I'm glad that she sort of warned me that it's okay to dip back. And I will dip back. I will. But I'm starting to dip my toes into acceptance. And that's not a bad thing. Now, did I want this? No. No. I did fight my way sometimes at the beginning, especially because I didn't know what I was fighting or what I was fighting. But no, I didn't want this. No way. No. Would I wanted another outcome? Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, hope is the last thing you lose. Hope is the last thing you let go of. So there are things that I just got to give it to God, you know? I do. Acceptance is such a powerful thing. It really, really is when it comes to loss and grieving of any kind. Because when you don't accept something, you know how you stay stuck in grieving? So anyways, my friends, that is it. I hope that I explained myself good. And yeah, so I'm hoping to go see my grandson next week. I want to go take a trip up there and see them. I just kind of want them to settle in, you know what I mean? I don't want to like be a pest and go, but can't wait to go see them. And next week, I wanted to tell my therapist about some ideas that I have, that I'm thinking about things and very excited about, but I didn't get an opportunity to tell her. So hopefully I will have that for you guys too and tell you guys what I'm going to be doing, because I'm very excited. I want to launch it first, then I'll come and tell you. All right, my friends, that is it. Take care, and I hope you guys are all doing well. All right, day at a time, you guys. Day at a time. And don't let fear be the dictator of your life. Don't let it. Don't let it. Don't let it. All right, my friends. I will talk to you soon. Bye.